pretty much. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the June 26th special meeting of the San Benito County Board of Supervisors. We'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Curl, please.
Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I please entertain a motion to approve the certificate of posting, please?
So moved.
First, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That would take us to the regular agenda, item 1A, which is County Administration Office. Approve the revised job specification for Deputy CAO to establish a clear distinction between HR, risk management, and budget functions. And we have Henny Ring.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. This first item is in regards to a job specification update for Deputy CAO, or Deputy County Administrative Officer, to be more clear. So this job spec hasn't been updated since October of 2018, so it needs some revision. What we're doing is we're making a clear distinction between the two divisions overseen by the County Administrative Office. The distinction would be one Deputy CAO over Human Resources Risk Management. The second Deputy CAO would be over budget. It's necessary to include this language to help clarify and define the respective duties. The clarification will support how the recruitment would be done if we're filling either one of those positions for qualified staff, and then it would promote efficiencies and execution of responsibilities that would contribute to overall smoother operations in the county admin office. In your agenda item, it says that there is no changes made to the minimum qualifications. However, we are asking to do one modification under the Deputy CAO for budget to include, make it very clear that it's going to be county budget experience that they need. So the language would include professional level government budgeting specific to county budget. So we want to add that piece, that distinction in there, clear. The recommendation would be that to revise the job specification for Deputy CAO to establish the distinction between human resources, risk management, and budget functions. I do have 3 additional recommendations that I'm putting in there that weren't in your agenda item. I apologize for that. Again, one is the specific language to add to county budget experience. Under desirable qualification, again, it's not a minimum qualification, it would be desirable, but we would also like, if anybody has a CPA license, that would be an additional addition to that. And then also, since this is going through the budget process right now, we would like to recommend that the board approve the allocation of 1 FTE for Deputy CAO / budget in order for HR to execute a recruitment immediately. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. We'll go to public comment.
If you'd like to make a comment, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press *9 or the raised hand icon. Joel, go ahead.
Good morning, board. I really went back and forth on whether or not I was going to say anything about this, because who needs to pick a fight with admin if they don't? One of the problems that I see, however, is I went back to the 2010-2011 budget to look at FTE positions in this county over the course of the last 15 years. The simple fact of the matter is, in 15 years, for example, the sheriff's office has barely gotten back, is not even actually back to the same operational level of sheriffs that existed prior to the collapse in 2011, 2012. My office just managed to get back to that same number of operational individuals. And yet, much like what we see in whether it's the university system or even in hospital systems across this state, administration expenses grow exponentially, well exceeding the cost of inflation. And now I hear that administration is wanting 2 CAO positions to be within their budget. The fact of the matter is, administration is an expense that grows and grows, and yet it comes on the back of operations. The expenses in administration are hidden in cost plan expenses, and I just would encourage the board, as we look at the cuts that are undergoing the operational areas, this The number of positions in administration from 2010 to 2011 has vastly exceeded the operational units, other than a few. And I just would encourage the board to look at, and you can go to the 2012-2013 budget, you can look at the authorized positions back in 2010, 2011, and get an idea as you go through all the positions, what has been the actual changes over the last 15 years, as many of our departments and the board looks for, where have all these expenses increased and how have they caused all this growth? So I would just encourage the board, instead of taking admin's word about doing what needs to be done, to be very careful about where those expenses come, because as administration grows and grows, it is borne on the backs of operations.
I have no other public comment.
We'll bring it back for questions and comments. Who would like to start? Supervisor Curl?
I want to thank the speaker, public comment from the DA. I hope everyone understands that I know from a department level the struggles that each and every one of you go through. Been there, done that. I know that I didn't come back from the 2012 layoffs when I was working here in my department. The one thing that I want to remind everybody is that there's a lot of history about administration and some bad decisions, in my opinion, that were made in years past. I'm not blaming one person. I'm not blaming any board. I'm just saying there's been bad decisions. Some of those decisions involve the fact that we used to have in our departments management analysts that did our budgets, that handled our agenda item transmittals, did our staff reports, that helped us and supported us within our departments. Those positions years ago were taken away from every single department, and they were put under administration. Administration had multiple management analysts. Each management analyst was assigned a department to support. At the time, it made some sense because under the administration, the county administrative officer would better closely know what's happening at a department level. But then over the years, those positions were all cut. They were cut to a point that we got down to staff analysts. We got down to, I don't even know all the titles that we have right now. We do have problems in administration. I'm not going to say it's not an individual. It is an overall collaboration lacking between administration and departments. And we have to take steps to try and identify what those big challenges are. We know as a board, budget is number one. Budget is the biggest issue that we have. And I think, in my opinion, it's been an issue for years. If we want to be successful, we have to start to look at some changes. We may not agree with those changes right now, and they may be temporary changes. They may be changes that only allow us to add positions to administration to be able to streamline administration in a more effective and efficient way. I completely agree with departments. Cost plan, it's out of control. We can't keep putting the burden of overhead on our departments. We need to start looking at, and I would hope that the new CAO would consider this, looking at putting expert financial people in departments to support them. It would be a benefit to every single department to have someone that can help manage grants, manage contracts, do all the things that each of you, unfortunately, as departments have been asked to do. When you're a department head, you come into this county and you do not plan on being a accounting expert, a contract bidding expert, an expert in human resources, an expert in all these other areas. I had no idea. I had people in big counties. You come to this county and you have to wear all of those hats. So even though this may not seem like it's understandable at this time, please trust that moving forward with this position means we are also eliminating the assistant CAO position, which was added specifically to support the CAO. That assistant CAO position in the budget is being cut. This is a lower level deputy CAO position. So I hope you understand this is hard for me to swallow and accept, but at the same time, we have to make changes and we have to try and work together to be able to make that possible. So I thank you for your understanding.
Anyone else? Supervisor Velasquez? Okay, okay, Supervisor Sotelo or Zanger?
Maybe I just have some questions for it. So with do we need to have two separate, and I guess I don't know who wants to answer, but do we need to have two separate or maybe you can go over kind of, so we've had the CAO and obviously that position has somewhat been vacant for a little bit. I mean, we've had interim, but below that, can you maybe like go over what the breakdown is currently that we have traditionally had and how what we currently have is going to be different than kind of what's proposed. So, the elimination of the assistant, all those different things. Can you like paint kind of a very clear picture for me so I can see the distinction from what we normally or currently kind of have versus what this new model kind of looks like?
I think there will be some additional changes that will part of the budget if we go through a placeholder budget today, that we would come back with some additional changes in admin. There will probably be elimination of other positions or at least one in admin. What we're looking for is a higher level budget expert to come in at a higher level that will be better supported of admin as well as all county departments. Right now, we don't have that. So that is part of the issue. So we want to bring in somebody at a higher level to kind of remedy that piece. Go ahead.
Good morning. Just to clarify, so the way that it was set up is CAO, assistant CAO, and deputy CEO, 3 positions. What we're asking today is to eliminate the assistant CEO, which makes more money than a deputy CEO, and replace that position with another deputy CEO that will be specifically for budget purposes. Someone that has the experience in county budgets. Now, there was originally 3 analysts supporting those, the deputy or the assistant CEO or the CAO. We also eliminating one of the analysts. So we will have 2 analysts only, one for the HR department and the other one for the budget deputy CEO. So we're downsizing, we're switching the positions in a sense, but one position is gonna make less money than the assistant CEO. Now, going back to the administration is a cost, it is a cost. But let me put things in perspective without offending any of the departments. But you departments, you manage your own department. You don't manage the entire county. The administration is in charge and overseeing the work of all 26 departments. So it seems to me there is a little understanding of the job of the administrator. I need support with people that has that level of understanding and capacity and have budget experience that we don't have right now. Otherwise, without a budget, a county cannot function. We're in deficit right now. Based on what I spoke just today, my discussion with the accounting firm that you hire as a consultant to analyze the situation, we do have a deficit. And we'll come back later on with additional changes. But as it is right now, we're not increasing anything. We're deleting a position as an assistant CEO, and we're deleting an analyst position as well. It's part of the budget. We're just replacing that position with another lower position, but with experience in budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate both of you for the explanations. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll just say I am understanding and sympathetic of the comments made by the DA. You know, as you mentioned, we see this in academia, in the medical field, and government, that administration grows and some of the operational positions are stale, I would say, or stagnant. But I think that cleared it up a lot. I appreciate that. I also want to say that I appreciate the comments by Supervisor Sotelo she made. I agree with that. And I think that explanation, at least for me, clears it up as far as, we're not necessarily just adding a new position, but rather just shifting things around in a way that is actually more cost effective. So I appreciate the explanation, and that's all.
You want to go?
Yeah, thank you. I understand the concerns too, but I have to say, I go back to day one when I was part of the ad hoc committee, and within the first 2 minutes, I said, we got a problem. We got a big problem. This can't be real, what I'm being presented right now. And I said then, if this goes to a vote, my vote would be no. I understood quickly that we needed a change because we did not have information. I'm surprised you were able to go back 15 years and get the FTEs, because one of the first questions I asked was, where are the FTEs? We don't have it. I need to see 5 years minimum. I prefer to see 10 years. I need to see patterns. Without patterns, I cannot go through these numbers. And with each question I asked, the more panicked I became, because the information was not there. A good leader needs, I tell my guys all the time, you need your left hand, you need your right hand. I'm left-handed, so I always choose left-handed. It's the next level. But it's important structure, because that's what steps up. And you need professionals. And I said this, if you don't have your assistant that's helping with the numbers, the budget numbers, that can punch in the 10 key without looking, you got a problem. You need that person. We should be able to, what we should be doing is bickering over a few thousand here or there. We're in trouble. Doesn't mean we can't fix it, because the information is there. We just have to re-sort it. So think of this as a chance to reorganize what really should have been done several years back, so we can have budgets that we can all understand and work together to make sure we're going efficient. And what I've always found in the past is when you have a good organization at the top, everything else becomes much, much more efficient. And that's when we're gonna start seeing savings. So, as we go through this problem we're gonna have for a year or two, what we're gonna see is on the other side, we'll see it come back out. Now, the key after we come out of this is to make sure we never go back to this. And I know that can be done because I've seen it done before. So that's just planning. And it's a process. And I have to congratulate you for taking the challenge on of this, but we're all here to help too. And you obviously are all here to help. So we're gonna get there. But I can agree that there has to be some changes then.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, so I think what this year has shown is that we certainly need, to prioritize budget expertise in the budget, and that's what we're doing. We're not adding FTEs to administration. We're just we're shifting things to prioritize budget expertise, and I think it's a really much needed change. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I have one more question. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In looking at the job description, we did not discuss contract administration in the job description. The word contract only comes up twice. Currently, the contract administration is being done by the county counsel's office. And I'm not sure if that's where that needs to be or where that should be, especially when it comes to budget and connecting long-term contract commitments to your budget. So I would highly recommend potential wording that allows the shifting of the contract administration back to the CAO's office, which is where I feel it needs to be. I feel county council needs to be a reviewer, not an administrator of it. But that's just, it just popped in when you were making your comments. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Any further thoughts on that? County council, CAO, anyone else?
From our standpoint, I agree with the supervisor. I think that administration work should be out of the county council's office because we have an oversight role.
So I'd entertain a motion to, see what the exact wording here is, to approve the revised job specification for deputy CAO to establish a clear distinction with the one amendment suggested by Supervisor Crowe to add contract management to the job spec.
So the county, preferably county experience, I think.
But that's in there, yeah, it's in the job.
Going there.
Yeah. Is there a first?
Other amendments, yeah. I have
Yeah,
three.
I'll make the motion as stated.
Sorry,
First.
can we
Second.
can we also include the amendments that were stated earlier, the three?
Yeah, I had three.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the three that were stated, yes, by Henny as well. Thank you for that. We have a first, again?
Yes.
We have a second?
Yes.
All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kuzmicki,
Yes.
Supervisor Zanger,
Yes.
Supervisor Sotelo,
Yes.
Supervisor Curro,
Yes.
Supervisor Velasquez,
Yes.
5-0 vote, motion passes.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much. That would take us to item 2, which is budget hearing schedule, and the continuation of our, budget hearings from last week. And the one request I would make is to try to focus more on new, whatever has been added, as opposed to going over prior, materials.
Absolutely. Good morning, Chair and members of the public. Can you see map to put the presentation? Thank you. So we're here today to continue the public hearing from June 17th. And I want to begin by thanking the board for your guidance and changes from when we first started. I also want to thank our team, Honey, Rebecca, Gracie, Sonia, Elvia, Rosie, and the clerk of the board for late nights and coming in on weekends to post agendas. Our consultant, Speaker Tillies, and auditor's office for really working with us. And I'm excited about our new CAO that's coming. And, you know, rolled up her sleeve and dug into this process. So we're here to finalize and approve an interim spending plan. And I want to highlight that some of the attachments on here that are on this agenda are from past agendas and do not reflect all the changes that have been made. So I want to make that explicitly clear. However, the supplemental changes that are attached have the GLs and adjustments we've made ever since. So I do want to highlight that. So today's actions, as we continue the budget hearing, there's
You're fine, Dulce, and I just want to take a moment to thank Dulce in particular, because Dulce has been put in this role, was new to her, and spent countless hours, nights, weekends, working on this budget. We know the level of passion that she brings to this county, that she's extremely valued, and I just want you to know that all the extra time that you've put in, we know that you've been putting in a lot of work and working outside of your bounds and continuing to learn a new area of expertise. And just want you to know that your work has been extraordinarily valued, and just want the public to know just the amount of work that Dulce has put into this, because it's been extraordinary what she's done, and taking time away from her family, I know, and because it just shows how truly dedicated you are to this county. So thank you, Dulce.
And thank you for the kind words. So today for the board's action, as we continue the budget hearing, there's a few key actions we would like the board to take. First, we want to continue the recommended budget hearings that will allow us to review information and aspects that have changed since the initial CAO recommended. Secondly, we'd like for the board to consider the adoption of a resolution, which is critical to having spending authority come July 1st, according to Government Code 29064. Third, there's a GAN limit resolution for the upcoming year, and this is a step required to ensure compliance with state spending limitations. And finally, lastly, the last recommendations to direct CAO or designee to proceed with deletion of the PIO position as part of the layoff procedures effective July 11th. This is not an easy recommendation, but reflects difficult decisions that have been made through this budget process. Okay, so moving forward, really to highlight key milestones of the 25-26 budget development process. We began with board priorities. We had an initial budget update. We've had two public hearings prior to today's meeting, but today's a critical checkpoint as we adopt the recommended spending plan, which allows the county to operate within spending authority starting July 1st, while we continue to work towards the final budget. The final budget adoption is expected to come to the board in fall of 2025, once we've had the opportunity to finalize projections, refine departmental allocations, and incorporate any legislative session. This timeline reflects our commitment to transparency, physical discipline throughout the planning process. Okay, so this slide reflects,
Oops.
oh, sorry. This slide reflects key changes. Okay, thank you. That key drivers that are impacting the budget. Oops, sorry. So this slide highlights main pressures driving the budget challenges this year. First, revenue growth is simply not keeping up with the pace of inflation, while costs raise across the board. We continue to face the need for long-term reduction strategies, not just to address the current shortfall, but to build a more sustainable financial future. At the same time, the cost of providing services is increasing as our population grows and community needs expands. So the expectations for county programs and support our community. Compounding to this, our state and federal funding has not kept up with the pace of the rising local costs. This puts more pressure on general fund and local resources. Wages and cost benefits grow in recent years, which is necessary to retain qualified staff and continue delivering critical services. And finally, insurance costs have increased by over 9% over the last year, and our fixed costs limit our flexibility, and we have to adjust and plan accordingly. So taken together, these factors underline why the strategy planning and difficult choices are necessary in this year's budget process. So quickly, I do want to highlight changes made since our last meeting at the Sheriff's Department. We're recommending to keep the four correctional officers, 2 positions vacant. However, they're unfunded, temporarily not deleted, giving us flexibility to revisit these positions in the future should funding operation shift needs. So I just want to highlight and make that very clear. We also added back 2 multi-service officers back in the sheriff's operating budget as part of the amendments before you today.
Can I just ask one quick question just for clarity on this particular part? So there would, because I think it's important, so there would still be how many correctional officer positions that are open? We still have recruitment to do. It takes a long time to recruit. So essentially we'd be recruiting
Yes.
number of positions.
So what we agree with Sheriff Taylor, I don't know if he's here today, he was ill. So he has 10 positions vacant. So what our agreement with him, and we were in both an agreement, is that we're gonna continue leaving the vacant positions funded, 6 of them. And if it happens that during the year, the fiscal year, he's able to fill those positions and he still need the 4 other ones, we're gonna come back to the board with a budget amendment if the budget allows to do it at that time. We send back also, the original 2 eliminated multi-service officers were sent back to the budget, so they are funded as well. So the only one that we're not funding right now are 4, but they're not deleted. I just wanna make sure that we understand that they're still in the books, as an allocation, but it will, if he can complete those 6 positions, fill those 6 positions, we'll come back to the board maybe in half a year, maybe at the end of the year. Maybe we will not be able to come back because it's been hard for the sheriffs to be able to fill those positions. It has
There's a
been,
likelihood they may not be filled, basically.
we don't know that. Yes, it all depends. He has, what we understood is he is trying to make it work, but it's been hard for him to recruit people as correctionals.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to highlight that we're not stopping recruitment efforts for these in any way. However, there are 6 vacant positions that they can fill currently.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so this slide outlines supplemental changes that have occurred, and supplemental changes since our June 9th meeting include taking out the CIP departmental budget out of the library department, reducing fire protection allocation as we're not building a fire department, so there's a cost savings for the contract. There's also a decreased expenditures for insurance that was included on June 9th. The biggest bullet point that is missing on this slide is that the addition of 13 positions back on the budget, and that's included in the supplemental changes as the impact. Also on the June 9th, we added a position to integrated waste, a limited term. That is not on this slide, but that was added from our last meeting. So today, June 26th, there's further reductions in the library temporary staff, and I'll go over on the next slide what that includes. The sheriff has made adjustments to salaries and benefits as an increase, and that's due to adding the 2 multi-service officers. We've also worked on increasing their revenues as well, so we'll review those right now. Assessor's Trust is bringing in additional funding that's transferring over to the workforce labor in County Counsel's office. And there are adjustments to workers' compensations that were identified were incorrect with, thanks to a meeting with Ashlyn, Chief Probation Officer Canez and her team. One, I really want to thank the time that they took to meet with me, and we went line by line. I think it took us 3 hours to go through every single line in their budget and what was inputted, what their actuals are spent to date. But through that, we identified that workers' compensation was entered in incorrectly. In March, we sent all the departments a list of what that cost should be and how they should update their departments. And our budget tech reviewed them and noticed incorrect inputs. So this budget does reflect those adjustments. I just want to clarify that. All right, so as discussed in the agenda packet, there's two detail adjustments from what budgetary units have been adjusted. For today's purposes, I want to focus on general fund. So these are the total adjustments that were made after our June 17th meeting. And in the general fund departments, it equaled a total of $320,000. And briefly to go over it, it included a net increase to workers' compensation across the general fund divisions. It included an increase in the sheriff's salaries and benefits. County Council has a infusion of, it's going to be put towards workforce, so that's why you see a negative balance there. Also through meeting with probation, it was identified that uniform allowances weren't included for certain unions, so those were adjusted and included. And the library did a reduction of temporary staffing, and that's why you see a reduction of $60,000 there. And probation, I again want to highlight their hard work in digging into their budget, making adjustments of $167,000. So through that, that's a net. Through all the adjustments, expenses were adjusted accordingly. And then on the bottom, you'll see revenue that was increased in this proposal. And it includes adding an additional 256,000. So we actually went up a little bit from what was proposed on the 17th, but they were necessary shifts that were required. So while we made significant progress in closing the gap, further adjustments are still needed to fully mitigate the projected deficit and protect the county's long-term financial health. A priority in preserving the general fund is our reserves, which acts as a safety net. According to Government Finance Officers Association, known as GFOA, it's best practices for local governments to maintain reserve levels of at least 2 months of regular general fund operating revenues or expenditures. So staying in alliance with these guidelines helps us remain resilient in the face of economic uncertainty and unexpected cost. As we continue refining the budget, staff will closely work with departments to identify areas of reductions, efficiencies, or cost shifts, always with the goal of safeguarding services and maintaining fiscal responsibility. So earlier I discussed that the shift in temporary staff in the budgets, in the library's budget, and that's going to directly impact how they run operations. So part of this proposal is modification of office hours to the library. So currently the library is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6, and Saturdays, 12 to 3. So Saturdays are open 3 hours to the public. The recommendation includes a shift that actually adds an hour more of open or available to the public. So it would be Monday through Thursday from 10 to 7 p.m. And Friday they would keep the current open hours from 10 to 6, and they would shift to being closed on Saturdays. And that saves them temporary staffing costs. So through that, this table highlights the evolution of this budget process as we started our budget hearing. I do want to highlight in gray is what the board adopted last year, what our recommendations were initially, how they were adjusted, and the differences from the recommendation to the proposal of today. Focusing on the general fund. So this slide provides a closer look at the general fund, comparing the CAO's recommended budget with the current adjustments, starting with expenses. So initially, CAO recommended $107.5 million in general fund expenditures. Through revisions and board directions, we've reduced it to $95 million. Saving an approximate $12.5 million. The budget also includes contributions to it does include adjustments in our revenues as well. So our net deficit before you today is 23.3 million, which is an improved shortfall from the 31.4 million presented to you before. So on our last meeting, so this slide has a comprehensive overview of the general fund and capital projects across budget years, processes from our adopted budget to our year-end projections to our proposal for 25-26. So through here, you'll see the cost of total CIPs closer to the bottom line. And I know the board had asked, what would it look like if we take out the CIP projects out of the budget? What was our true deficit without including those projects in there? So the bottom line on the bottom is if we were to take out the CIPs, you'll see we were still at a deficit last year, and there's still one projected today. So the current slide outlines our projected use balances for this current year, comparing what was originally adopted and what our year-end projections are. As you can see, projected general fund expenses are highly lower than what was originally adopted, down from the 117 million to 86.8 million. Due to implementing part of reducing cost measure that was implemented earlier through interim CAO, and we're working really closely with the departments. Revenues have also remained relatively flat, with only a moderate increase over the figures. You'll see a reduction from the 49 million to the $49 million deficit to the projected $17 million deficit, which is where we anticipate we're going to end the current year. Below are the anticipated fund balances that we would bring in to balance this current year. Once those balances are brought in, we would be left with a surplus of 5.18 million. And we would bring that over into the current year. And as you could see with the projected, so here you'll see what was adopted in 24-25, what was originally recommended through this CAO recommended, and then adjustments we've made and where we fall. And we are anticipating as a spending plan of using 23 million in financing sources to be used to cover the deficit as this interim plan. As we present the proposal, it's important to acknowledge its challenges ahead, but also to reaffirm our shared commitment to facing them together. We know that one-time funding won't always be available. This makes our efforts to overcome the structural deficit even more important. It will take more than a year to get us back on track. It's a multi-year journey that's going to require a really tough decision, critical thinking, and steady collaboration. This is without a doubt a year that calls for difficult policy choices, but through it, we have an opportunity to step back and really evaluate how we operate, how to find efficiencies, and how to work towards long-term sustainability. These challenges aren't ours alone. Local governments across the country are experiencing similar pressures, inflation, raising costs, limited resources, paired with shifting federal funding, are affecting us all. That's why physical transparency is principle, and it's how we move forward and serve our community. As we considered any increased expenditures, we must do so knowing that there must be trade-offs somewhere else. Every decision has an impact. Together we're better, and together we move San Benito County forward. And again, I just want to highlight that the CAO recommended budget as originally from our original proposal is available online. All supplemental changes that have been included are included in the agenda packet by account number. And lastly, as we move forward in the 25-26, these are conditions of approval that have been established through this process. And I just want to highlight that if we do move forward with the recommendation, first, we would implement the hiring freeze as the board directed, with important exceptions. Public safety, subvented funds, and other essential roles will be considered, but only with approval with the county administration. This step helps manage costs while maintaining critical services. Second, as previously discussed, there will be modifications to the library hours to reflect reduction in staff and to better align with operational capacity while still preserving public access. Third, all general fund departments are asked to actively partner with administration to identify savings and limit the impact of general fund usage. That means working collaboratively and creatively to reduce costs without compromising services delivery. These conditions reflect our shared commitment to be responsible steward of public resources and our confidence that together we can rise to meet these financial challenges. So finally, these are the formal actions requested by the board today that are also included in the agenda packet. And briefly is just to continue the one budget hearing from June 17th, review and discuss any changes, and adopt the 2 resolutions that were mentioned earlier before. And lastly, authorize administrative office the steps for the PIO layoff effective July 11th. And that wraps up my presentation.
Thank you so much, Dulce. We'll go to public comment and then we'll bring it back to the board.
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press star 9 or the raised hand icon. And I'll start in chambers with Tammy Aviles.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. My name is Tammy Aviles, and I'm with the Friends of the San Benito County Free Library. I, want to thank you for really the tough job of having to deal with the budget and trying to make sure all the services, are still available. As you know, the library is one of the few spots in the county that is open to everyone, and it does provide support and resources to our community. I did want to say with regards to the library expansion, I know you've put it on, it's on the list to be put on hold, but right now, where it's at is the RFP for the design build contractor is under, I guess, legal review to be posted. So while we're still, I guess, in the review period through September, if that could still go forward, that the RFP could go out, you could receive the bids, that we've made a little bit of continuing progress without, I guess, significant money outlay, that the planning could still move forward. We still encourage you to make the library expansion a priority. We do have the $10 million grant. Time is of the essence, and the more postponing and delaying, it just starts to look unreal to meet the deadline to have a completed library with doors open. So thank you very much. And of course, the Friends are here to support and are always willing to meet with you to discuss things further. Thank you.
Next in chambers, Sue Logue.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, County Administration, and public. My name is Susan Logue, and I'm a Hollister resident and a member of the Friends of the Library, our local nonprofit. And I'm here today for 2 important reasons. Well, maybe 3. I know you have some difficult decisions to make, and I know it'll be difficult in the next year or 2, and we appreciate all your diligence in this area. I'm sure it's not an easy job. But I wanted to share with you today about the library's positive impact on our community and its members and its many services and programs, as you're well aware. But the second is to remind the board as to their allegiance to the public and community in building a new expanded library. First, the library provided about 156,000 items for checkout and it has many programs and services. Some of these services were summer reading program. Yesterday, we had a snake specialist come in, and we had about 200 children attend and their families, so it was very successful. Before that, they had the summer reading program, also had Rhythm and Roots, which was a really popular program and well attended. We also have a preschool story time, Roblox Club, Lego Club, knitting, adult literacy, homework club, ZIP program, and I think last year we had 333 programs that were provided to the public. We also have many other online resources and in-person services. And not to mention, the library is a very safe place, open to all, although not open to, as in the jail. Only a few are allowed there. But it's still a good place to go to. Second, I want to share my dismay that the state library grant, which allotted $10 million, may be returned to the state unused. This will occur if the board administration is unable to complete its dedicated match of $5 million. I think I understand the library impact fees will raise approximately $2,631,000 by 25-26. So the administration has committed to making up the difference of $2,369,000 if the ARPA is not originally followed through as promised. The board administration needs to do what's right for the people of this county. The library was built in 1960 when the population of Hollister was a fraction of its present population. The people of the county deserve a bigger, modern version to meet the needs of us. The board administration needs to think outside the box and realize this state library grant is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which if missed, will be a grave and wrongdoing to our community. Thank you for your time.
Next in chambers, Joel Buckingham.
Perhaps it is in part my life listening to my grandparents in times bicker, but I remember something that I had heard older people say, which I think is somewhat appropriate in this circumstances, is the man may be the head of the household, but the woman is the neck. And the reason I bring that up is because you, the Board of Supervisors, are the head of the household in this budgetary process. But I would warn you, beware your neck. And what I mean by that is administration comes in here and tells you about 2 deputy CAOs. I have confirmed, because I was curious about this, there's never in the history of this county been an assistant CAO and a deputy CAO at the same time, or 2 deputy CAOs. And then they present it to you as they're going to be saving you money or helping you out in this process by clarifying this. I would beware what admin tells you. They are not necessarily giving you the information you need. I hear you, Supervisor Velasquez, say that you asked them these questions for FTE schedules, for budgetary information, and it's been hard to get from them. Why? One should ask that question. In the law, when an individual withholds evidence, that is evidence of guilt. If they manufacture or fabricate evidence, that is evidence of guilt in my line of work. The simple fact of the matter is, caution should be taken when listening to admin. They have lied to the department heads, and I say that as one of them. I do not trust that they are giving you the total truth either.
Next in chambers, Elias Salinas.
I would listen to the accountant if I were you. So we are so grateful to have Supervisor Velasquez as one of our supervisors, because in 2 minutes, what a genius, he was able to find out what a problem we have. It's been going on for years, but it took him 2 minutes as a genius to let you all know what problems we're having. The new CAO has been placed out of the pan and into the fire. Dulce has been placed out of the pan and into the fire. And she was here reporting to you what has to be done because the numbers say it. Well, not just the numbers, but the board. One particular person who's the bully on the board has been Supervisor Kosmicki. You have caused a hostile environment. You have bullied to get this done, and they have worked tirelessly to get this done. The PIO position, it's great that our new CEO was able to, be creative and be able to get these new positions to help her. The reason she needs help is because she is literally in the fire, not knowing what she was coming into. You are the stewards of this county. You're the stewards of this money. You're elected to represent everybody. The sheriff is understaffed. You refuse to negotiate with the city with regards to the fire contract. You are now that much more money every year, and yet you ask all these departments to make all these cuts, and they have all worked with you. Except, in my opinion, county council. County council makes a lot of money and can be reduced a lot more. Get rid of the contract with Ray Espinoza that's costing $300,000 a year. You need, right now specifically, the county is negative views with the public. You need the PIO to be out there and giving you the positive things that are happening in this county, because there are positive things that are happening, but this budget is really taken over and it's in the negative. Do the right thing.
Thank you.
Next in chambers, Tom Slavich.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The assessor's office has the GIS budget as part of our budget. And I just kind of wanted to go over that briefly. It's not quite correct. There's 2 FTEs and we have 1 vacant position that's going to be eliminated. I don't have an issue with that. However, when they did the elimination, they eliminated the GIS manager position, which currently I have Renee in. So currently his salary now for the next year is under GIS tech. So he's short about $30,000 in his salary. So I think that needs to be corrected. And the other thing was we had a part-time GIS tech that we currently have. It's about another 30,000 that is no longer in the budget. And I believe I sent these to admin some time ago, but they haven't been reflected in the budget. So I just want to make those comments to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. On Zoom, you've been unmuted and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good morning, Stacy McGrady, District 1. This budget is heartbreaking and completely predictable. We've known this was coming for years, if not decades. This is the result of short-sighted, selfish decision-making with no eye towards business, no eye towards developing a future, things like Measure A, that our county leaders told us this will destroy our community's ability to maintain safety and security. And again, it's heartbreaking and it was completely predictable. We were warned. We knew it would happen if the decision-making stayed on the same track that it's been on. And here we are. And it is so completely frustrating. We need to repeal Measure A. We need to develop jobs in our county. We need to develop sustainability. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. We'll bring it back to the board. Who would like to begin?
I'll
Supervisor
start.
Velasquez.
Thank you. Not often I get, I'm declared a genius at a meeting. But, you know, guys, you guys all have the skills and the expertise and your budgets. This is not, well, I shouldn't say it's not difficult. It's just going to be taking time. There's a shift in how budgeting was done from the past to what we're doing now. And that's an important step, because if we're going to move on in the future and have the ability to plan better, that shift needed to happen. I can tell you again, from being involved in government for over 10 years, I've seen these patterns in the past. I know without a doubt we can overcome them. But the key part is understanding and acknowledging what's going on and the numbers. And if we take that, we tell my kids this, step by step, we can do anything. And that's what this is. We have to go step by step, figure out again our revenues and our expenses per department, figure out when these one-time monies, and the big problem that's happened, not only here, but cities and counties all over, were those one-time monies, where people felt there's more money, let's spend more money. Government has a tendency, I say this often, you know, we have a spending problem. Not so much the revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And I get it. Money comes in, you want to spend it. And I'm not saying you guys in particular, but all of a sudden it dries up, or those partners that were going to give us a lot of money, they go away. And we're seeing that now with the state. We're going to see it more with the feds. And this is where it's important that anything we do in the future is based really on our revenues. If a grant does come in, a grant shouldn't have strings to it. If it does have a lot of strings to it, you know, I'm going to take scissors out and cut those strings and just say, it's not worth it. I've seen this happen again and again and again. But more importantly is facts. You know, I keep hearing people come up here and spread misinformation over and over again. Fire contract. We have a fire contract. We got that done. And how did we do that? By working with our partners, continuing negotiations, and it worked out. And that was the hope from the very beginning. We did it. I heard a person talk about, oh, because of Measure A, we don't have revenue. It has absolutely zero, and I want to say zero, as loud as I can, to do with Measure A. Measure A was just implemented. How about all the years before? Where were all those revenues? They weren't there because they're imaginary. Folks, I keep saying this. Let's stop falling for these, oh, we could build, you know, this and that. Well, we're going to have millions. You're not. I've proven this in the past. I've shown this in the past. You want to know why we have issues? It's because too much growth. Growth is one of those things where you come in, oh, look at growth, and we have some more money. Then it goes the other way on you. And then the costs are there forever. That's the reality of government. This is why we have to be careful what we're doing. We have to plan wisely so we can make sure we can sustain all the things we know the public enjoys. We're a unique community, a beautiful community. We need to stop trying to be a suburb of San Jose and make those same mistakes. The ability to have a good life here is here. We're going to go through this, and it's just going to be a process to go through. You're going to have a challenge. You know that already. But some of the steps, we need the expert in there that understands every dollar from every department all through the year, not only for the administration side, but for your side. So you know what's going on. We need to have the pattern. We need to know FTEs. You know, we need to go back in 5 years, 10 years, so you can see what's going on in your departments. And we can plan better. Now, I'm telling you from experience on this in the past, as bad as it looks right now, and we are going to have the hit, I don't want anybody to think we're not going to, but if we plan well together, we can absorb a lot of that and come back out and get strong. And when we get strong, we need to make sure we have a better policy in place on our reserves and, again, future planning, so we're not just saying, oh, here's money, we're good today. Let's think all in terms of one group, and we'll get there. But please, the misinformation, the constant misinformation just needs to stop. It doesn't help our public, and we can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? If nobody, I'll go ahead. The library being closed on Saturdays, can we get clarification? Because I know when this came up earlier on in the discussions, just as far as the rough number of people that visit on Saturdays, because my recollection, I believe, was something like 20. Austin, I don't.
Hi, good morning. Austin Curtis, County Librarian. So are you asking about
the rough number? Because I think that's what Manny had told me, but I just want to.
It's around like 30 people.
30 people on Saturdays.
On Saturdays.
It's by far the lowest.
It's the lowest day. And so one of the in making this recommendation, one of the reasons is because since we're only open the 3 hours, we don't offer programs. And so we would be able to continue offering programs during the week, and I would be able to stagger my full-time staff. So some would come in, 9 to, 6. The other would come in 10 to 7, and then I can use the reduction in temporary hours to kind of fill in the gaps and not have to worry about using full-time staff to act as supervisors on the Saturdays.
So we're actually we're adding hours overall.
We're adding, 1 hour, but
we're not reducing hours to library services, and
we're keeping it the same.
We're emphasizing the times of the week that are the busiest times of the week. I believe it's a lot of kids coming after school, as far as I understand.
Correct. So so especially during the school year, so for the 8 months out of the year, we get very busy from roughly like 3 to 6 right now, and a lot of times we have issues getting people because they want to stay. We still have people right at closing, and so having that extra hour would, that's more time for people to get tutored. That's more time for us to have programs to draw in kids for people that maybe can't, because they work, they can't get to the library on time, when we're currently open, they have that extra hour.
Okay, thank you, Austin. Okay. That was really I just wanted to clarify that. And then,
and if I could add one more thing, the library would have to bring a resolution forward to make the adjusted changes. So we had discussed doing an implementation in early August, so it would give the community some time to adjust to the new hours.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so I think just today, the temporary due pass, it just gives us those 2 months to further refine this budget. I think, for me, I've been saying from the beginning, I'll say it for the last time, before we approve a temporary budget, at least, that the numbers just don't add up from the logic of having where we were in the mid-80s last year of actuals. That's the projection, mid-$80 million for general fund, and what was presented to us after some cuts was $107 million, basically over a $20 million increase. I know there were some increases that we've seen, but I do believe that with some further work, we're going to find some things that bring these costs down. You can mark my words on that, because there's no possibility that the budget jumped by $30 million or $25 million while we're cutting all this. So I'm faithful that in the next 2 months, we're going to get to work and get, to a point where we're not having to make such drastic cuts that we were hopefully looking at. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Supervisor Sotelo?
Thank you. I've got a couple questions regarding the library, and I don't know, well, Austin, one of them is going to be for you. Sorry to bring you back up. I've got concerns with the hours and our commitment on this grant match. So I'm just curious on the hours. Is this something that you feel like is a good solution kind of in this temporary time, or is this a grave disservice to this county, this community, to save $60,000 to cut Saturday.
So currently this is would be a temporary fix. I mean, depending on the whatever happens down the line in the future, we can come back and discuss.
I mean, the reality is we're not going to find a ton of revenue. So a lot of these changes are going to be changes that are going to, call it temporary if we want, but realistically, I think we shouldn't be looking at some of these as just a temporary. We need to plan for the worst.
So then this is the best, given that this is the best option, because again, we currently do not conduct programs during Saturdays. So we would have we increase the hours, which gives, again, us, more time to spread out our programming. Staff are able to stagger staff during that time. And then because we have the book locker, we can place the holds. So people that maybe, need to pick up materials on Saturdays or during hours we're closed, we can actually still serve them because we can put the materials for them to pick up in the book locker.
Okay. Is the library used as a cooling center when it's like really on our warm days? If I can remember, I thought it was one of our cooling centers previously.
It is a cooling center, and because if we needed to potentially open on a Saturday, I could come in and just open we do have that the barber room area in the front that we could use and still keep the rest of the library closed if needed.
When we do have those really warm days and it's used as a cooling center, do you get quite a bit of people there, or?
We do. I mean, even when we're not a cooling center, we're still a place that, we're for the community, so we're busy. If it's hot and it's not deemed a time that the county's under cooling centers, we're still a safe space for the community to go.
So when it's hot like that, and I'm probably going to jump over to Office of Emergency Services, but let's say it's hot and it's Sunday and currently you're not open on Sundays, right? So would you guys open on a Sunday, or you would be just a cooling center on hours of operation that you're open? Like, how exactly does that kind of work?
Typically how it's been done in the past is it's just during the hours we're open.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, do you mind coming up, please?
Good morning.
Good morning. What other cooling centers do we have in the community?
Typically, we use the library just because their hours are convenient. If we open a cooling center, aside from the library, it requires at least 3 employees from the county that we need to take from other departments to staff.
Okay.
So typically, the library is the most convenient.
I know it's really hard to predict, right? Weather-wise, and is it going to be during the week, the weekend? But I'm really kind of concerned that with the elimination of library hours, we potentially have no cooling centers for the weekend.
Saturday. And usually it's Saturday. I don't think we've ever used it on a Sunday. Typically, it's just that library hours. So we would have to find an alternative option.
Okay.
Which, again, would require employees that are disaster service workers to.
So potentially we could end up spending more than $60,000 on an emergency if we have to find a cooling center and we have to hire 3 people for that.
Potentially, but very unlikely. We don't have many hot days that we open a cooling center, officially open. Maybe 5 a year.
Okay.
Would be a lot.
Okay.
Although, as they said, they're open and people tend to go indoors when it's hot, but we typically only advertise an official cooling center a handful of days.
Okay.
And that's for the Hollister Library and San Juan Bautista.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I've got one more for you.
Yes.
In regards to emergencies.
Yes.
With the elimination of a PIO position, I have real concerns about what happens when we have an emergency, who's communicating to the public. And so I was just hoping, because this is specific to emergencies, if you could maybe speak to that, what that would look like without a PIO.
So we actually have our regional operational meetings quarterly. We had one yesterday, and that was shared with our region that we are likely losing our PIO. My first request for mutual aid would be for a PIO, and we would hope that our neighboring counties aren't faced with the same situation and could loan us one through mutual aid. No guarantee if we are having an earthquake.
Well, and if it's an emergency that affects our entire region, everybody's going to be short-staffed.
Exactly. But if it's something isolated to just San Benito County, we would request one. If it's global or more regional, more than regional, we would request from the state, and they would pull resources from other regions.
Okay.
It just depends what the incident is, but the state has already been advised that we will likely be losing our PIO. We are making plans currently for the rally for a PIO and working diligently on that.
So we would be hiring a PIO for the rally, during the rally
We will
times?
have one available and identified by the state to use if ours is not available.
Okay. Okay. All right.
We're in the planning stages for the rally as we speak.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Those are all the questions I have regarding emergencies. And Austin, thank you very much. I do have real concerns, though, with the library and kind of our not committing basically the $2.5 million that's going to be needed. I really think we need to show a commitment to this community. I think there needs to be a cut in the roads budget in order to fund some of these other things. I've got real concerns about emergencies happening in our community. If we're not planning for some of these things, we're going to get caught in a very, very bad situation. And so, I am not in support of the way that this budget is right now. I think it is a huge disservice to this community. Roads are important, but we also know we have that HCD infrastructure grant for $11 million that is specific to our county. Yes, we have to apply for it, but a lot of the roads that we want to get done have been damaged in floods. We can use it for that. And so for me, a temporary cut to roads to fund making sure that our commitment to the library and some of the other ARPA projects that we committed to, really we should keep our commitment. For us to lose $10 million grant and send it back to the state, it's not going to just be a hit this one time regarding the library. We will be laughed at when we apply for future grants. We send money back. So I really have concerns about that. We're on a tight time limit. I really would like to see this board, again, cut roads and fund the commitments that we've made in the past. In regards to some of the ARPA projects that we have put on hold for the community, I think people are having a hard time understanding where did that money go? And so if somebody can just come up, I don't know who wants to answer this question, but for the public, where did the money go on the ARPA and why are the ARPA projects now on hold indefinitely? Very unlikely that some of these things will ever be done. So where did that money go? Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that. So ARPA funding went into fund balance, which funds county operations. So part of the revenue or fund balance is used to balance the budget is covering operations. So, so it got absorbed in our total cost.
So we committed to doing these ARPA projects, then we balanced our budget with what was left over from ARPA, and now we have zero. Is that a fair statement? I only ask this because I'm getting these email questions to me, right? And that's kind of how I understand it, but I want to be very, very clear with the public that that is exactly what has happened. And so when we say we're putting these on hold, there is no money to eventually do some of these projects.
Correct.
We used it to essentially balance our budget. Okay, thank you, Dulce. And just curious, like on this GIS correction, is that something that we need to take care of prior to adopting this budget, or this is something that can be done after we do this temporary pass?
If there's adjustments to the temporary GIS division, that was not included. So that would be a motion to add X amount of dollars back into temporary. However, the adjustment to the correction of the allocation for that position, the manager in GIS, was reflected as part of the general fund expenses. So there would be a motion needed for the temporary, but not the other one was already included.
Okay, so even though it didn't show, it is absolutely
it is
included.
part of our expenses, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I probably should have started with this, but I'll just kind of go into it right now. I'm sitting up here in the seat. I'm incredibly sorry for what all of you guys are going through. The tension in this room and the frustration, I feel it. And I'm really, really sorry that we're all sitting here dealing with this. I get there's a lot of frustration with admin, but I will tell you, we have to remember that a lot of these decisions were way before where we're at right now. And so when we blame administration, please have a little bit of grace. So much of this was prior administration. The people that have been, keeping the lights on, doing everything that they can, and now having new administration, please work with us. Please give some grace. I get the frustration. I'm frustrated too. But I feel like we have an opportunity right now to work together to figure this out and to really work as a team. The employee morale here has gone down tremendously. I've seen it. We worked really, really hard my first 2 years on this board. And it feels like sitting here now, we've gone backwards by a lot. And I'm incredibly sorry for that. So I would like to see a commitment from this board, like I said, that we're willing to take a look at that roads budget, to do what we need to do to keep our commitments on some of these ARPA projects and the library. And I would like to see us keep the PIO position. I think that we are putting ourselves in a huge disservice when it comes to emergencies, local emergencies, regional and statewide. I feel like even having somebody, there's backup plans of having somebody come in from the region or the state. They don't know our community. They haven't been communicating with our community. I think every single department has had the opportunity to work with our PIO. We're getting really positive things out there, but we're also getting factual information out there, which is, again, misinformation. That word is used at every single board meeting here. And so let's do something about it. Let's make sure that we have one person from the county that can get out that factual information. If we are, and I feel like as recall campaigns are happening, this is an opportunity to step up and make sure that you're doing what you can to make sure that there isn't misinformation going out into the community. I feel like by eliminating this position, it comes across to the community as a, you want to control the messaging. And that we are stifling information from getting out to the public. And so I have asked before, if this is personal, this makes zero sense to me. I get that there's hard decisions that have to be made, and I get that there's, cuts that we need to make, but I think there's a way for us to continue to make sure that our community is safe, that they're getting information, and that we're able to provide basic services, because that's where we're going. I'd love to be able to provide, all kinds of services. Unfortunately, that's not where we're at. And so, but I do feel like we have a commitment to this community to keep them safe. And I do feel like the PIO is part of public safety. And so I would like to see that position kept as well. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Zanger.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, so I'll just say right off the bat, I am opposed to cutting the road budget and diverting that to things like the library upgrade. And very simply, the residents that I'm up here representing would not be in favor of that. And I would bet the entire county budget on that they would not want me to cut the road budget and divert it to things like the library upgrade. And so just to be a good representative of the residents, I cannot do that. I am sure that they would not support that, and I would want to do that to them. Beyond that, I'm trying to think what wasn't touched on, the GIS. I will say that the library plan for the Saturday, I support. I mean, we're just talking about ROI at the end of the day, and if we're talking about 30 people on Saturday, we just need to think about these things in terms of our investment and the return on the investment. So I support the plan. I'll say a comment made earlier in a general idea about the budget from Supervisor Velasquez. Actually, we take a big picture and we step back. There is something that he mentioned that is, I just want to touch on because it's true. It's absolutely right that we have issues and, we have growth issues and people think they see all these houses. They think, well, the county's going to be rich. We got all this property tax. Well, you have 1,000 houses, now you have 2,000 to 3,000 cars on the roads, and not just the half mile that the developer paves. Obviously, they go everywhere, and so we have these long-term, everlasting costs associated with these things. And at the end of the day, maybe a development can pay for itself up to a time, but it cannot indefinitely. And so that's the issue that we have with some of the ways that we've been growing. I think that's the root of a lot of financial issues, frankly. That all being said, I do have a question. It's not a big deal, but if the cooling center question, I do have a question for OES, I think. So as you're walking up, was the Vets Hall ever used? I thought the Vets Hall was used as a cooling center at one point, or am I
We did a few years
mistaken?
ago, which is really big.
Yeah.
So typically we would use the offices upstairs. It could be an option. It's a matter of opening a large building and they have to be present and if there's another event going on. So it's just not always as convenient.
Yeah, and I thought I heard that when it was open, there was like 2 people that came and they were just
Yeah, typically
that were
we don't
skateboarding
have,
through, actually.
That was actually the library, but yes,
that was the
the
library.
case a couple years ago. We usually don't have a large turnout. People find their own alternatives.
I understand. I think I understand when it's hot, you want to go inside where there's AC. I do that too. But I think in terms of an actual need for a cooling center, it doesn't seem like there's a huge need.
It isn't a huge need here.
It's not 118 degrees usually like in Imperial or wherever.
Correct. Yeah, our temperatures usually aren't unusual for the summer. I kind of joke we pay big bucks to have this weather.
Yeah.
And we have a few over 100-degree days, but they're not usually too consistent.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Supervisor. You're good?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, I would just say yes. I'm in favor of going forward with the temporary plan.
Supervisor Curl?
First of all, my heart goes out to the staff because I know none of this directly happened because of you. Departments, admin staff, where I'm struggling is I do have the same frustration as some of the department heads. And it's because I haven't trusted the numbers that were being given to us. I didn't trust them last year. We as a board were told specific information that we could fiscally handle certain decisions that we were making when absolutely that was not true. And this staff is who has uncovered that. And I'm sorry that you guys have been put in this position of ripping off the Band-Aid, because the Band-Aid is that we are not fiscally stable where we should be. And that is going to take some shifting, as my colleague says, but I do not agree that we have just an expenditure problem. We do have a revenue problem. And if anyone doesn't think that revenue is a major issue in this community, economic development, the future revenues of our county, how we fund long-term on projects like roads, libraries, infrastructure, all of those are huge things. I do agree with Supervisor Sotelo that there should be a shift of $11 million. If the roads fund is funding $11 million to whatever projects, HCD, that money, as soon as they adopt the sixth element of the housing element, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling on my words there, the sixth element, housing element, we have to apply and we compete with no one. So shift $11 million and don't tell the public that you're taking away $11 million because you're not. You're shifting $11 million to replace roads that have already been funded versus shutting down things like a library expansion or reducing the GIS position down from a manager down to an analyst, which I am not in support of. These minor corrections can come back and bite us because to make a shift change, like if we're doing a temporary due pass right now, and we don't say we need to correct the GIS manager, we need to also correct, I'm still not in agreement, I apologize, and I will be meeting with the CAO soon about our adopted budget from last year to this year. I don't agree that we are all on the same page. The library RFP should move forward. If it is in County Council's hands right now, that should be a pretty simple, not costly approval process to keep the library moving forward while we're doing a pause on any capital improvement projects. The time it takes for contractors to actually bid out work is extensive. If we lose that window because we're pausing right before that RFP goes out, that is going to hurt any chance of saving that grant. So I would recommend that the GIS positions be addressed in this temporary due pass. I would add that the RFP continue, not selection and awarding, but just the RFP period be continued forward. A lot of this is years in the making, and unfortunately, we have to face the facts that this is being uncovered. It is. And I'm not gonna sit up here and say, we had great administration in the past that was on top of all of this, because I don't believe that. And I will never believe that. I am also going to ask that the item number 5 on the PIO position, that be a separate vote. So my recommendations would be for items 1 through 4 would be adding, ensuring the correction of the GIS manager positions have been done, that the RFP continue for the library, that the shift of the 11 million in HCD roads money is adopted, and then a separate vote on the PIO and the elimination of that position. Because I believe if we can't communicate as an organization with one committed voice that supports the facts, we're doing a disservice to our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So I've heard a suggestion that we make the adjustment on the GIS position and that we separate out I think it would be 3 through review and discuss fiscal year recommended budget and changes. So really 3 and 4.
Could I also request a minor modification per the prior agenda item to include the cost allocation for the position as approved in the prior item as part of this motion? The cost for the deputy was not included, and it would need to be.
Yes, so as stated, from Dulce, additional, now do we, I would entertain a motion because you've made a recommendation to shift road money and some other things. So I would just make a recommendation. Is there, or entertain a motion for the suggestion from Dulce, the amendment on the GIS position, and if there's anything else anyone would want, we would take separate votes on 3 and 4 versus 5.
Excuse me, I would like to clarify something. The $11.5 million that we're discussing about the CDBG roads, we still don't have a contract for it. Just want to make sure that we, as I discussed with some of you, the idea is that out of those $11.5 million, we request, number one, to the State of California Housing and Community Development, the possibility of use the portion that was originally allocated from the county as a matching fund to be used from that amount, from the $11.5 million, which would be like $2.5 million, right? And the rest submit projects for road improvements. However, we need to take a step to be careful, because the funding source for the library is the one that is going to dictate whether or not they will be willing to take federal money as matching funds. Some of the funding agencies have restrictions. EDA, for example, would not accept any federal funding as matching funds. It has to be local funds, local general funds matching. So we had to do 2 steps, basically. Go first with this housing and community development, see if they will be willing to fund this project, which is already ongoing. If they say yes, then we'll go to the funding agency for the $10 million and let them know that the housing and community development is willing to accept this project. And if they both in agreement, we continue with the project. We actually gonna continue with the RFP because I think it's a valid point, because it's a long process, and to have it ready, not to award the contract, but just to wait for the funding agencies to both be in agreement to continue the improvements to the library. That's our approach that we're taking. In terms of the housing element, if we don't have the housing element in place, we will not be able to secure any funding. I also want to mention that we're also exploring the possibility to apply for the regular CDBG program. The $11.5 million is disaster money. But there's also an opportunity in the upcoming 2 months, July and August, to be able to apply for additional funding to the CDBG program. And they also have a program that is called over-the-counter program, which is the funding that most of the jurisdictions do not use, or they were not able to implement projects that comes back in a pot, and then we might be able to apply for those funds as well. So there's different options that we can explore, but be assured that I'm already working with the state. I actually had a conversation yesterday with the state of California regarding the possibility. So I just want to make sure that you know that we are working on it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I just want to make it clear, I should have stated as well, I don't support pushing off the roads, because if you're counting on a portion of the $11 million, we're basically we're taking another summer where we're barely doing any road improvements. And I will just echo what Supervisor Zanger said, is that, you know, that's the number one priority that you hear from our residents. And I'm not going to answer these questions again for another summer of why we didn't fully invest. And we're not even fully investing, by the way. The $7 million is just really getting this thing started. And so if you're counting on the $11 million CDBG, that means that we're taking a summer off from the roads, and I'm absolutely not going to support that. But I would entertain a motion. We have some components here with GIS position. It sounds like I would also support that, adding that back in, the portion that was mentioned. I think it was $30,000, 60. And is that, it was for both? Was that? Is that the consensus from others that was supported that portion of it, if we parse these out?
These positions are already, I just want to clarify, these positions already are in existence and have people in them. So what's happened is we have actually budgeted for positions lower. So we would be already downgrading those positions.
For, specifically for the manager position, yeah, if you want. That one was corrected through the workforce plan, and the numbers that were presented today does include that shift and adjustment. What was not included is the temporary help. And Tom can maybe answer how much the cost for the temporary would be.
And can any of this come from the assessor's trust? Sorry, have to ask. You know how I am about trusts,
Sure.
even for a year.
The original budget right now that we have for GIS is 439,000. So it was recommended to go down to 239. By doing that, Renee only gets 3/4 of his pay, basically, and he's the GIS manager. So he's short probably 30,000 plus or minus. The other position that we have on the books is the GIS tech position, part-time. And looking at this year's budget, it's gonna come out to about 30,000. That position is crucial to help Renee in, various projects. If we have an earthquake or a flood, you're gonna be every department's gonna be going to GIS. And you gotta have these positions in place because they're hard to fill. So for $30,000, that GIS part-time position is a bargain.
And just to clarify, we have shifted or in the process of shifting, all of our parcels are being aligned in GIS now. Are we shifting away from CAD?
What we're doing in the assessor's office and working with the GIS is we're taking all our hand-drawn maps, our hybrid maps, which are hand-drawn and AutoCAD drawn, and all of our AutoCAD maps, and we're converting them into a GIS Esri product. And if we didn't do that, we wouldn't see that in our lifetimes because we're doing the whole county. They're gonna be colored maps, Esri maps, still working on that. We're almost complete with that. So the whole county will be digitized in GIS.
Which will be more efficient and more effective in your staff being able to do the assessment and the process of bringing revenue into our county. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because the embracing of GIS, I thank you so much as the assessor. It needed to happen because that's where the technology is going. And if we fall behind on that, to get caught up will be atrocious.
And with our mappers in the assessor's office and the GIS there, the information just flows. It's gonna be flowing much more quickly. And if there's any issues, they just talk right there. So it's pretty good.
And just so the public is fully aware, when we say hand-drawn maps,
You're talking
we're
maps,
talking hand-drawn.
hand-drawn that were drawn on linens and, back in the
Yeah.
day. So
'Cause
those
when
are all being converted as well, so.
Precinct maps were hand-drawn when I started.
Yes.
So I totally get it. We need to get technology moving forward so that your staff can be efficient in bringing in assessment values.
By the time we're done, because Santa Clara County, we'll be ahead of Santa Clara County. They want to come down and look at our maps. So that's a pretty good deal. So.
That's a pretty good deal. Okay. I totally support the adding back of those. But can you take anything from your trust to help alleviate?
I believe, was it 330,000 in there? And I was going to use that 10,000 to county counsel's office for helping us with stuff they do in the assessor's office. I also had a position in there, I think that we're unfunding, the assessment clerk, accounting appraiser tech. That's a flex position, and when the time comes, I was gonna maybe use some of those funds for that. Anything left over is supposed to be used for the assessor's office. However, GIS is now linked to the assessor's office, so I might be able to use some of that money possibly.
That would be great and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I would suggest, at least 30 of the 60,000 come from the trust, maybe the temporary help. Is that a reasonable compromise? You said you have 300,000 plus in there?
Yeah, we might be able to do that, I think.
I don't know if there's other thoughts. I'm just throwing that out there.
My only thought is that it would be collaborative between the department and the CAO to make a recommendation.
Is there any way we can split that maybe, or possibly? I mean,
Yeah. All right, $49.99.
We're making progress, everybody.
So I would just entertain a motion to adopt the fiscal year recommended budget resolutions reflecting changes made by the board during the budget hearing with the additional recommendation of what was discussed by Dulce regarding the deputy CAO position and with the increase or adding back in of the would we be doing $30,000 or $60,000 as recommended by Tom Savage with the assessor and CAO working out the details on allocation there. So that would be for 3 and 4. Can I entertain
Mr.
a
Chair,
motion?
can I add continuing the RFP for the library?
You can make a motion, or somebody wants to make a motion. I don't support that, but right now I think we have to stick with, unfunded capital. That's just my personal view.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask a question. For the RFP, if you're trying to get the proposals from a contractor now, and we don't have a defined start date, that's going to create issues with increased costs. Because how can a contractor give you a price for what he doesn't know start date is? I'm kind of curious on how that would be handled.
Let me ask a question to the attorney.
Okay.
We're talking about the RFP for the designing group, not necessarily for construction. Construction is
Okay.
different.
Okay, gotcha.
All right.
Yes, and even in construction, when you go out to bid for construction, you have 90 days to decide on whether or not to award the contract. The bids are good for 90 days.
Gotcha.
Yes, but this is not for construction. This is just
Design
design.
is perfect, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, I think that changes it a bit. So if it's just the design, I think that's less of a drastic change.
So to clarify, was that, were you making a motion? Were you making a
No,
recommendation?
well, as the chair, I'm entertaining a motion. We have 3 and 4, and then
Okay.
there was a request to parse out 5.
Yeah, I will make the motion as stated with the friendly recommendation, I guess, from Supervisor Curro regarding the design RFP.
You were first.
included.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All's in favor, roll call vote?
Supervisor Kosmicki,
Yes.
Supervisor Zanger,
Yes.
Supervisor Sotelo,
No.
Supervisor Curro,
No.
Supervisor Velasquez.
I'm going to make a comment before I say my vote. We're all in this together, or we're going to all fail together. And I'm not going to be in a situation where we have a divided board about our budget. So with that, I'll vote no, because I want to make sure we're doing it together. I'm telling you all, if we don't, we are going to fail. And I'm not going to be put in that position.
So what's your recommended budget then?
I'd like to hear from one of the others.
They've made their points. They want to delay the roads until next year, or they want to add the PIO back in. That's what we're talking about. So if you support delaying the roads for a year and adding the PIO back in, then
Absolutely not. I'm just going to say no. If you're not going to vote to approve the budget together, so be it.
Weren't we I thought we were separating out 5, the PIO.
oh, well,
Right.
that's true. The 5. So all we're talking about is the
Is
roads.
The roads, right?
So if you don't want to do roads this summer, then
I can tell you,
It'd be 2 summers.
I'm just going to go back to
it'll be
this.
2 summers, yeah.
These are all important pieces to keep moving forward. I've dealt with roads for years. And by putting them off, you're increasing the cost by numbers you can't even start to understand. I'm going to tell you, let me add a little bit more. We care about the safety of our community. My daughter just got sent down Fraser Lake because of the little map things on her car. She's a new driver. And I said, honey, why did you go down that road? She said, it sent me down the road and I was scared to death, Dad. I don't know what else to say. We know we have some seriously dangerous roads that need to be fixed. It cannot be ignored, guys. And these are all things, again, when we work together, we're going to solve all of these issues together. It's going to be a challenge. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be a challenge, but we're going to do it. If we start breaking off because of this and that, I'll almost guarantee you, we are all going to fail. And when a budget has these issues, you address those issues and you face them and you work together as a team. And if we're not going to work together as a team, I can't support the budget either. If we're going to, I'm all in and I'll do whatever it takes to succeed. But I will not be part of a divided board on something this important.
But you have previously voted in favor of this. You've said you support the roads. So in concept, you're supporting the motion that's being suggested. And there is no compromise because we haven't been provided a compromise by either of the people that are against it. So.
And that's what I'd like to hear, something else. Because again,
I'd love to give a compromise. I mean, I think we're looking for 2.5 million for the ARPA project. not the ARPA, well, the library was part of the ARPA originally, so the library match. So if you can commit to taking out $2.5 million for roads and putting it to the library, then I could get on board with supporting the budget. But without that, I'm not gonna budge on that either. I mean, it's the same way that you're taking a position of you're not budging, well, I feel in advocating for my constituents, yes, roads are important, but so is our library.
So you're deciding between roads and the library, Supervisor Velasquez?
I'm not.
Can I-
What I'm deciding on, or what I'm going between is I'm trying to point out to you guys, you work as a team in these tough times to get things done. There's been projects on the board ready to go that have been delayed so many years, and this is why our roads are in the condition they're in. We're gonna find a way to get the library done, but what we have to do is get started on this budget and acknowledge these problems you guys have. I heard you say this, have been several years down the road in the past that led us to this point. I think I made something very clear when I started on this ad hoc committee and I saw those numbers. I said, the buck stops with us. The budget numbers should never have been in the situation they're in right now. That should have been caught. And as long as I'm part of this board, I'm gonna say very clear, I don't play with numbers. This is a very important part of our job. I know how to go through this and make it on a path that we can get ourselves out of this within a year or two. But I'm not gonna be playing around on something so important. This is critical, and again, if we work together, we can get the roads done, we can get the library done, we can work with our departments to make sure we're moving forward. And what you're gonna find, and I'm quite confident, is so much of the numbers are just misplaced. And that's our biggest issue. And for us not to have known that before really shocked me. So it's, again, for us to all work together, or we're gonna all fail together. And this is why, again, I want the roads. I don't think adding money or changing things now is wise, and I'm not gonna support that either. But I'm not, we're gonna be here, not approving a budget, so be it. But I'm not gonna be part of that.
We do have to approve a budget. What I would suggest is that there has been a compromise that's been suggested, which is that we use a portion of the CDBG funding for the library when that becomes available. But because the roads is a timely matter, that if we don't commit to the roads now, we're not doing them for the entire summer. The season's gone.
Sure.
And so that's, if we still have that potential availability, is what I heard, of CDBG funding or other funding sources for the library, where if we start the RFP for the design, we're still moving the process forward on the library, and we're not delaying and just missing an entire season of road improvements.
Sure, and I agree with you. I want to make sure it was 100% clear. I'm 100% committed to fixing our roads, because it is one of the most important things we can do. When we start talking about other funds, hopefully money will come here, money will come there. This is, again, where we're getting ourselves into trouble.
The money's there, though. It's $11.5 million that we're going to have available.
If everything gets approved, it's not in your account. I'll say this again about government. It's not in your account until it's in your account. I've seen this happen one too many times. And again, we talked about the proposal, keep moving with the design. That means we're moving forward on these things. As the grants do get approved, great. We can keep, again, move to the next phase of it. We have the funding available, or we had it for the roads. We have all these other things. What I'm trying to do is keep us all moving forward without stopping, making the mistake of saying, oh, we're not gonna do this now, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna figure it out. It might not be as beautiful as we thought at one time, but we're gonna get there. And I'm just, the only point I'm making here is either we are united as a board to move forward on this budget, or I want no part of it, because I know where this is going, guys.
To you. And I don't know if you want to talk at all about the library, because you're coming in new to all this, and
Yes.
you've seen a project that's been in the works for quite a long time. There have been flaws. I gotta say, I worked with the Friends of the Library to propose the library expansion. So I need to put that on the record, that I was working with Susan Logue and Tammy Avalos, and I know they'll vouch for me on this, to propose the library expansion. This library expansion probably wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for my efforts along with the former supervisor and the Friends of the Library to put it on the table. We have to make challenging decisions based on priorities of our constituents. And if we have to pull back on the library and take a step back and reassess the library project with the commitment of still getting something done, it makes a lot more sense to me than just saying we're not going to do roads for an entire summer. CAO?
Yes, I just want to make you aware that if you don't approve a budget, a preliminary budget or a continuous budget, operations stops on July 1st, because we will not have a budget to continue operations. That's very important for everybody to understand. So we need to have a approved budget, or we'll come back in 2-3 days more to another special meeting, but we need to submit a budget, a preliminary budget approval to continue operations. Without a budget, I cannot operate this county.
And may I kind of quickly talking to the auditor's office, if the board agrees to taking a loan out of one of our other impact fees as a temporary solution to fund the project, we believe it's within the board's authority to authorize that if the board so chooses. But we would need to get details in.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to favor that. I think we had here what we need to be doing. We could spend hours changing this, changing that, but I can tell you again, in a few months, we're going to be, oh, well, we didn't know. No, we did know. This is the point I'm trying to make. As a team, together, we can go through it. If we start fracturing and start, I want this, I want that, we're going to fail. And again, this is why I'm saying I fully support passing this interim budget, but I'm not going to be part of a team that's fractured out of the gate, because we're going to fail down the road. And I'd rather face up to it right now. Now, myself being more conservative with numbers, I'd be a little more hardcore on these cuts. But I'm going to give this time to figure out what happened in the past so we can make sense of it. That's what needs to happen. And CEO is absolutely correct. We don't pass something July 1st, we don't have anything. And I'm trying to stress the importance of team right now. And if we can't do that, I'm not going to deal with this 6 months down the road bickering or these different things. I want to know as a team, we're going to find solutions. And I heard a lot of solutions today from several people, including the board members. So I know we can do it. I'm just trying to point out the importance of this, because we can't go through this severe of a budget fractured like this. I wasn't here last year, or the year before, or the year before. But as was pointed out, within 2 minutes of seeing what I saw, I knew we had a problem. And we got to face that problem, address it, and again, keep working as a team, because it's not fair to our constituents to just, we're going to make this work and that, but forget that over there. No.
Yes, Supervisor Curl.
So I don't see Steve Loop in the audience. Is he on Zoom? The reason I ask is because we rolled over $6 million from last year's budget to this year's budget for roads, for projects that weren't done. What is he committed to getting done, and what will actually get done, instead of just holding that money and not actually getting it done? Because actions speak louder than words, and we've been rolling over money year after year because projects are not getting done. What can actually get done on roads, and are we budgeting accordingly?
Mr. Chair, if I can answer it real quick.
You can, and I would just, real quick before that, I would, I believe he's gone out and he's brought in a project management consultant to manage the projects, and I think we need to follow up to make sure that that's happening. But it was supposed to take some of the oversight, the accountability out of Public Works' hands and making sure we had a firm that was moving these things along. It was built into the budget. But Supervisor Velasquez?
Thank you, and it's a good question. And one of the comments in the past was, well, we won't know until we have a budget approved. The priorities that we talked to the ad hoc was make sure we're getting the high volume roads taken care of, which would have been Union and Fraser were two at the top because of the amount of traffic, commuter traffic on there and how dangerous they are. So those were in ready to go once we got through a budget. And there are a few other roads, but those are the high volume roads that we're gonna be focused on for this summer season. But once we miss that season, we're gonna go off again, and we don't know. You know, the thing about roads, you don't know what you're coming up to in the winter season. You may get lucky and it's a dry winter season and we make it through another year, or all hell breaks loose and we get flooded and those roads become gravel dirt roads with, as you all know, some massive potholes. People are trying to dodge around, which hits the ruts on the side of the road and just accidents. And it's been this way for too long. And these are projects that, you know, they're expensive, but again, every year you miss, they get more expensive. They don't get cheaper.
Yeah.
Supervisor
Chair.
Zanger?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I understand what Supervisor Velasquez is, the point he's making, and of course, we don't want to go forward with a, you know, divided board here. We don't want to have this splintering off, and with the budget, it's obviously not a good situation. But I don't really know what other compromise there is out there if there's a sort of impasse here between, well, do we want to take the money from the roads and put it towards the library or not? And if there's just a division on that, you know, that just might be what it is. I'm not sure how to rectify that at this point. We're going forward with the design RFP on the library, and but I'm certainly not in favor of pulling back on the road funding. And from what it sounds like, the other two supervisors, Supervisor Crow and Stella, aren't in favor of pulling back on the library funding. So we seem to be at a bit of an impasse. And so as much as I appreciate the sentiment that we want to be on the same platform here, we all want to be on the same team, we all want to be agreeing on this, you know, I don't know if it's always possible, and it might be okay, in my opinion, if it's not possible. We might have to just disagree and move forward because we have to get something done, so.
I would just add, I think it's perfectly fine to disagree. I think it's healthy to disagree. Government is about debating things, and, you know, and there's another item that we have, number 5. So if we can sit here all day and talk about we need to be 5-0 on every vote. I'm not a believer in that. I believe that there are going to be disagreements. We've made some compromises here, and there's a clear line of delineation. If the two supervisors that are stating their support for immediately funding the library are willing to understand that we're going to continue to work on this project, it's just that we need to take a step back on it. That's just my view, and take a look at what we can actually afford and whether logistically what we're doing makes any sense, to be frank. Otherwise, I don't know what the compromise is either, because I don't think the $7 million that we're putting toward the roads is nearly enough either. We're actually putting off projects that we committed to doing this summer, even with the $7 million. So.
I would say, sir, we trust in our staff, our new CAO. We go with their recommendation. That's how we should be moving forward. And again, we have a long road ahead of us, a long road of difficult times and discussions. And again, I've been here before, and I do not want to start it off in that way. And we got to succeed, guys. I'm just trying to point that out.
Anyone else have further thoughts? Any other motions? Supervisor Velasquez, would you like to reconsider your position on the motion? Because you've stated you support the motion, but you want us all to vote a 5-0 vote, but there doesn't seem to be a willingness to diverge off of viewpoints. We have to approve a budget. This is the same, go ahead.
Yeah, again, I'd like to have one of my colleagues that did not vote for it make the recommendation. I'm pretty clear. I think I'm pretty clear on what I'm saying.
Please, you cannot call out from the audience.
No.
No, we're going to have to pause the meeting and take a recess and take more time here if you speak up again. Thank you.
Ma'am, and this is, guys, This is exactly what I'm talking about. We're gonna
I'm not
in a
going to be
situation-
bullied to change
I'm
my
being bullied.
position on something. Maybe ask Supervisor Kosmicki or Supervisor Zanger. I think it's not fair that you're looking at both Supervisor Curro and I as the ones to change. I'm not going to be bullied to do it.
I'm not
I've got my
asking you.
position. I'm going to vote no unless we're willing to fund the library. Otherwise, my vote is no. So we're either going to be divided or somebody is going to change, but I am not changing my vote.
Is there any way we can look at our impact fees differently for funding the library to continue it moving forward?
The project already had $1.8 million in impact fees. Impact fees are very specific about the uses, and the expansion is already meeting the criteria, but I don't see any additional funding.
Additional funding kind of brainstormed really quickly was using our full match from impact fees, but taking a loan out from other impact fees that would require board action to divert actuals that are sitting in other impact fees, and it would be a loan that we would consult with our financial consultant on the structure of that.
So it would be a loan to fund the library,
From other impact fees into the
not
library.
impacting roads.
Correct.
Well,
From fund balances.
But that does not guarantee that the library project will move forward. It is just a process of showing that we're going to support the expansion of the library, but we have not actually pulled the trigger. It would be just funding it through a loan process.
Yeah, and we would structure a loan and bring that back to the board for consideration, but yes, that could be an avenue.
If I could make a motion, Mr.
Well, can
Chair?
I ask a question before that, if that's all right?
Sure.
So in any case, you could just take a loan against any impact fee and just divert it to anything else essentially? So then there's no,
In part of our annual impact fee report, we did budget the costs coming from impact fees. When the board approved it back in the project, the original structure was to use impact fees because we didn't have enough, we committed the general fund. So that was brought to the board in the past as using the full county match to come from the impact fees. Because the fund balance was not there and we had ARPA available, that's how that decision was made. However, there is an opportunity to explore this as taking a loan from another fee that would go back to impact fees. It's
in the
for
end,
one
though,
impact fee.
we have to pay the loan back. The money's coming out of the general fund in the end, so this is just kicking the can down the road.
It would be from another impact fee to another one, so it'd be a loan from non-general fund.
This just sounds, honestly, like I appreciate the creative thoughts, but if this is my household and you're asking me to do these creative, not even creative, schematic maneuvers, I would say no. This sounds very questionable to me, just from a financial responsibility standpoint, and I will not support it.
a lawyer.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yeah, there are significant legal issues with taking a loan from impact funds. For instance, impact fees have a nexus study. There has to be a nexus between the impact fee and the project that's demonstrable. And so without looking at all that, without really knowing what even we're discussing right now, I couldn't give you an opinion on whether this would be legally cognizable or not. There's a lot of research to do on it. It's an idea, but I don't think it's formed to the point where you can vote on it.
It's fiscally irresponsible is what it is.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We also have had, prior to me being on this board, I believe it was in 2022, we had a presentation done about our bond rating, and that we were rated very high, and we could look at doing bonding for our road repairs. The interest rates got too high. We weren't prepared when they were low. And it's looking at the future. Hi, Steve.
Hi, everybody.
You're late to the party. So, Steve, I'm glad you're here. But let me finish this thought. When it comes to what was presented previously was long-term loans from bonds for funding infrastructure like roads. and paying through impact fees gathered over a period of time. I'm really synopsing that very detailed, very extensive presentation. I'm looking at the auditor going, do I basically have that kind of sort of right? So if interest rates went down, we'd be able to go and bring forward maybe some bonding for more road projects.
That's true. However, you need the revenue source to be able to pay those bonds, a dedicated revenue source, like sales tax, something like that. And given our financial condition at this time, I just don't see how we could do that.
Okay. I just wanted to ask because it was something previously that was out there. And I'm gonna, thank you so much, Joe Paul, for coming up. Steve, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put you on the spot because my question is very direct. What can you actually get done this year on roads if we fund what is being asked to be funded?
All three of the $7 million projects can absolutely be funded this year, and built this year. But I have a suggestion for the board's consideration, because I've been listening. I apologize, I was in 2 other meetings, and so I apologize I wasn't here, but technically I'm still in another meeting. But so, previously discussed by the board, there is $2.9 million that was designated for Wright Road, Measure G, that even the board ad hoc, or excuse me, the road ad hoc said that might not be the best use of funding, $2.9 million. It's for roads. That $2.9 million could be shifted into the $7 million, which would free up the library discussion of $2.5 million. So that's my suggestion as a compromise for the board, that the Wright Road, which a lot of folks think maybe that's not the highest priority, which compared to the other $7 million, I agree. We could take that $2.9 million, shift into the 7, and that would free up $2.9 million. So.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Steve, so much. Mr. Chair, I could support that.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question about that?
Mm-hmm.
So the 2.9 for Wright Road, if the road ad hoc was saying, hey, you know, that might not be a good use of the money, right now the money is still sitting in the Wright Road pocket?
100%.
And I will clarify, we requested it to be moved out of the Wright Road pocket and to be put into the completion of Fraser Lake Road, I believe, or there was another set of roads we were looking at.
We were looking at Salinas Road, and we were discussing where that should be, because the roads ad hoc was discussing Wright Road maybe isn't the priority, 100%. So I don't think we determined where. We just said there are other roads that could be used besides Wright Road.
But what about the completion of, because we were going to do a portion of Fraser Lake?
So the Fraser Lake's already included in the $7 million.
The entire portion?
The entire portion, that's correct. That $7 million includes all of Fraser Lake. So therefore, if we shifted the 2.9 from, sorry, I'm out of breath, from Wright Road into the 7, then that frees up the 2.9 million. And Fraser Lake would still move forward.
Mr. Chair. Mm-hmm. And Union?
And Union, yeah, Union's part of the 7
Just want to
million
make sure we're being very clear.
Yeah, the 7 million is Union, Fraser Lake, and San Juan Highway, so, yeah.
Any other thoughts, further thoughts? I think, do we need clarity on the library situation as a whole before we go committing a large dollar amount to this project, as to what options we might have and whether what we're doing right now is feasible, whether we even have enough money to do what we're doing right now? Because there seem to be a lot of question marks surrounding the project and where we're going with it. And we've had a lot of experience, I have, in the last few years, of seeing these projects kind of sit and evolve and get more expensive and evolve and never happen. And I just kind of want to know what actually is the vision here with this library project, and whether do we have enough money to do what we're trying to do. Because to me, there's just still a big cloud. Again, I'm the one that proposed this expansion several years ago. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but
So based on the experience that I have with projects, construction projects, and I have done a lot of them, I know that this project began 2 years ago. You set aside $15 million, the big picture for this project. I can assure you right now, and he's gonna be in agreement with me, that this project might be $17 million as today, because the prices have gone so high that I can assure you that this project is not going to be $15 million prices. I want you to be aware and conscious that the beginning of that project happens 2-3 years ago, number one. Number two, if it's correct what the Public Works Director is mentioning, that he has $2.9 million set aside for the project, that means that we will not go to the state and ask for $2.5 million to be moved away from the $11.5 million that we still don't have for the library. It will go all to the road improvements instead. That's kind of like the way that we can manipulate the situation. But I want you to be aware, and it stays on the record, that even $2.9 million may not be sufficient to do the project. I have issues with that project from my point of view. You are about to invest $15 to $17 million in a building that is old and that is not, it's not gonna be expanded to the point that it's gonna survive many more years, because that building is very old. I have issues with that, because a fire station that was just built recently, and as a pre-engineered building, with all the costs included, it was about $6 million. So I find very difficult to believe that investing $15-17 million to an old building will bring you a new facility, because the walls are still the same, and so is the foundation. So I want you to think about those things, that we're investing a lot of funding in one project that is located in a very old, dilapidated building. Just keep that in mind. I'm here to implement whatever you as a board decide, because I'm not the voting member, you are the voting member, but I want you to be aware of those issues. So I think it's an option, like I was mentioning, and we will allocate, if the board decides to do that, all the $11.5 million from the CDBG to the roads. It'll go back to the roads eventually. But that's just an option.
Steve?
Do you want, okay, so let's discuss the library first, please. So what we've done is, and this is always per plan, we've always set aside of the 15 million total, 13 million would be for construction, 2 million's for design, construction management, soft costs, et cetera. So we've always planned 13 million of the 15 for actual construction. What we've done with the current design, we've designed with library's staff's input, a construction budget today of about 11.2 million, and then escalated the costs, just like the CAO said, over the next 2 years, to say that 11.2 million today is probably 13 million 2 years from now, just like the CAO said. So we've actually put in an escalation factor, knowing that costs would rise, so that 13 million 2 years from now, or a year and a half from now, is actually 11 million today. So we, just like she said, we put in escalation costs. So I also think it's a good idea to not commit future HCD 11.2 million funds to library, because that's, like CAO said, you can't usually mix those commitments. So I don't know if those answers the questions.
It does, and I would just point out, you know, I'm not going to do the rhetorical question here. I'm just going to point out that these projects do oftentimes cost a lot more than where we start, and I do have serious doubts that we're going to be able to do what we're doing within even the dollar amounts that we have, and we're going to end up with a project that is not bringing. I think we need to reassess. I think we should do a library expansion, but I do believe we need to reassess the amount of money that we have and what's a more realistic design, a more basic building structure. There are other options for, because the way that we're doing it is inherently expensive. And I'll just point to the jail project and where that project started as far as the estimated millions of dollars it was going to cost. And are we still done paying for that jail project? And where it ended. That was my one rhetorical question. And it was significantly higher. And I can't in good conscience shift money away from the roads for a project that to me needs to be reassessed and needs to be looked at more realistically. that's just my 2 cents. I wasn't looking.
And it was a rhetorical question. So.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to agree that the building where the library is not the ideal building to expand. It's not an ideal location for, because it isn't good bones. We had this conversation previously. I think I was pretty clear, investing this level of money in the library where it is existing is kind of a waste of money, and that we needed to look at this holistically and differently with our facilities needs, and that conversation kind of died. So I completely agree that we need to look at this differently. Now, if we lose the $10 million grant, if we have to give that money back, how does that affect future grants for this county and this community? Because if we are handing $10 million back because we can't get the job done, what does that do to our future grant abilities?
And do we have to hand back the $10 million as well? I mean, can we?
I want to open the opportunity to negotiate with the state to reassess. Steve and I can jump into a call with the state and see where we are and how this could be, will be affected, the grant funding. The idea is not to lose the funding. The idea maybe is to reassess the issue and bring the points that we both have regarding the building, and then come back to the board with whatever comments the state might have regarding this project. If they want to continue with the project and the location that it is, then it's fine. Otherwise, we'll lose the funding. However, if they're open to the option of relocating the library, then we will also bring that option to you before you make a decision. It's not, the intention and at no point is to lose the funding. We will try to keep the funding, even if we had to continue with the current facility.
Any further thoughts? If we can try to get some level of consensus at some point, I mean, is there a reasonability of looking at a commitment to the library project, but taking that step back and allowing the CAO to have those conversations? Just in light of the cost concerns, the large question marks hanging over the project, we don't even know if this project is even really feasible the way we're doing it.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I can say, I think we all heard here, we all agree that an expansion needs to happen. What we have to do is what we're going to have to do with this complete budget. We're going to have to go through everything and figure out how we're going to make these things work. What is realistic? Is the location? CEO is absolutely correct. If you're building on something you probably shouldn't be building on. But what's the option? What can we do? And those are the conversations we need to sit down together, work out and say, okay, here's a better way to do it in a new building, maybe not as expensive as what was going to happen, because when you're doing reconstruction on top of another, that's expensive, extremely expensive. But we can find another location or different ideas. And again, guys, it's just a matter of us really sitting down and understanding this and having that conversation and talking to the state, obviously. So that's one piece, again, of the budget. We have 26 other pieces of that budget that we got to work through. And together we're going to succeed. If not, I want this, I want that, well, we're going to find ourselves spending more money that we could have used throughout the departments rather than in an efficient manner that 30, 40 years from now, I'm sure I won't be around, but we can talk about, oh, look at that was a good decision they made back then. So let's step back on some of these things so we can do them right, is what I'm trying to say.
Do we lose the $10 million if we don't set aside the 2.5?
We don't know. We need to talk to the state to find out what they want to do. If they would allow us to change the scope of work or the location, or that we have to continue with the project and the location that it is right now. It all depends, but the idea is not to lose the funding. But I cannot assure you right now what the state is going to say.
Can I make a compromise suggestion that we, look, I don't think Wright Road I would like to use as much as we can on roads. I don't think Wright Road makes a lot of sense right now. We've been open at the ad hoc level about, there's probably gonna be development pressures out there. The high school wants to potentially build out there. Why would we spend $3 million on a road that ultimately, should be probably paid for by other entities? If we shifted the $2.9 million from Wright Road and temporarily took a step back on not only the road, but the library, to allow the CAO to try to work her magic on the grant funding, and then come back to the issue. So it would be taken out of the budget, the money would be available, and if the CAO can work it out to change the dollar amounts and the project, and we commit as a board to reassess the project so that it's a more realistic project, basically. That's kind of just the general sense. If there's a middle ground there to pull back on the Wright Road project, because I don't think that's the best use of our road dollars either, and that we essentially shift those dollars over, unfund that dollar amount, and reassess in the, I guess, by September, hopefully.
Sure.
When we approve a final budget.
So just if I can clarify, so the money, basically the Wright Road money would kind of sit in limbo for now until we hear back from the state regarding
It's
the
Measure
library.
G, so Measure G would fund a different road project.
My understanding is that currently the 7.5 million from general fund going into roads, 2.9 of that would be shifted into being funded through Measure G, lowering the general fund commitment for road projects.
Okay.
Is there further refinement of what I'm trying to essentially say that we can put in the form of a motion that hopefully we get consensus from the board, that we're committing to the library project, but we want to unfund that dollar amounts for now so that we can take a deeper look and allow the CAO to get a better handle on it?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I can support that with the understanding of the amendment to the GIS budget that we discussed, with the continuing of the RFP and I think that was it. Yeah, for design.
The allocation also for.
Oh, the allocation also for
the deputy and
the
salaries and benefits
yeah.
and administration.
Yes.
But $2.5 million is essentially the dollar amount that would be
shifted,
unfunded for now. And we would, because September is, we want to have a final budget, and we don't want to deal with budget amendments and all the forfeits votes and everything that come along with that, that we try to come to consensus on a library project. And does that make sense? Go
Makes
ahead,
sense to me.
I'm curious why we're not going to say that that funding is for the library.
Because if the library is potentially not a, and maybe I'm misspeaking here, but if it's not necessarily, if we can do it for a dollar amount that's not less, would the state be willing to work with us? I don't know. I'm trying to find, I'm really trying to.
And I really appreciate that. I mean, I really appreciate the discussion and the consideration today. I just don't know why we're not going to commit the money to the library. Now, if things change between now and September and prior to us passing, then I think, I mean, this is kind of our temporary, so why not say we're committed to the funding for the library? And it's, so just to be clear, I think Steve said it was 2.9 coming from Measure G, right? And so are we saying that, and it sounds to me, I don't know what the exact amount is in that impact fee, but what I just heard you say is that it's a 2.9 offset. We're going to take only 2.5 of that offset and relieve the general fund. Am I correct in that? Is that what I just heard?
What? Yeah, the 2.5 is what we would be, because not the, yeah, the 2.5
So
is
not the 2.9, but the 2.5.
necessary to get the grant. So that's what we would be, that's what we need.
Well, I mean, we need 5 million for that 10 million, right? We have a 5 million commitment for a $10 million grant match. So I think the offset, what is needed from the general fund, is what is not in the impact fee. And I don't know what the library impact fee balance is today. So we're going to need to offset that.
What's the dollar amount that we need to make sure that if we go down this current path of getting a $10 million grant, that we would,
So Dulce has the numbers, but my understanding is almost $10 million in grant, almost $10 million. It's not $10 million, it's almost $10 million.
Yeah, it's 9.9 million.
Yes. And $1.8 million from impact fees.
That's our current balance as of June
Yes.
30th. We're projecting by the end of next year, maybe adding a little, we'll probably, our balance would be a little shy of 2.4 million, anticipating permits being pulled.
So even the $2.5 million is not enough to make the $5 million. That's what I understand is. So I will recommend, if you allow me to, based on what Steve mentioned about their funding that they have, the $2.9 million, to allocate those $2.9 million for now, while we're reassessing the situation and ensure that we don't lose the funding from the state. And considering that this is a temporary budget, this is not the final budget. Between that time, which we have July and August, to be able to come out with either with a different plan or different location or to continue with the project, but we'll come back with you with the responses before that time, before the final adoption, so that you can make a better decision. So you will make that decision at that time. But for now, I think that's an option to be able to get this budget approved. It's just an option for today.
okay. I know Supervisor Velasquez has had to step away. I would just ask while we're waiting for him that there's a commitment to be open-minded about where this library situation is going. We all want to see an expansion, but to be open to, you know, if there's a different way of doing this, because we still are going to need to get a majority vote to make that project happen, whether we budget for it or not, that there's a commitment to having a more open approach to where this library expansion project is going, whether it means exploring a new building somewhere else that's a less costly project, and that I just want to, it's my request to the board, just to be open as we go forward on the library project while we're ensuring that we're committed to the library expansion or a new library, if that's feasible, allowed by the state.
I completely concur and have felt that way for some time because I'm not a fan of that building. At the same time, working collaboratively with the city of Hollister on options too. And I know they're contributing to the library, so just keeping that in mind.
Okay, so entertaining a motion, somebody want to give this a shot?
No.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay,
I don't mind.
go ahead.
Want me to try and give it a shot? Okay, so I'm making a recommendation that we do a temporary due pass of the budget with the following amendments. GIS department would be $60,000 with negotiations between assessor's office and the CAO on the assessor's trust account. That we would continue the RFP for the library, and that we would shift the 2.9 million for Wright Road to the 7 million for roads that is funded by the general fund, and move that 2.9 from roads to ensure that we do not lose the grant for the library, with an open mind that we will have to reassess and have the library project brought back for determination. And the deputy CAO cost plan.
Salary allocation.
Salary allocation. That's my motion.
Second that, but would like to, just a quick point of discussion. I'm wondering if we can have a commitment from the board that if the library project does come in lower than the $15 million, that in concept at least we're committed, because we still need to move forward on these road projects, that in concept at least we're committed to shifting that money back toward whether it's some other road, not Wright Road, that is in need of repairs. Because again, these are one-time dollars that we're talking about.
Understanding if there's savings in the library, that the money came from roads and it would go back to roads, I'm okay with that. Unless something more urgent came up, that has not been brought to the board's attention at this time.
Okay. We have a first, we have a second. Any further comments?
Well, I would just, if I can,
Oh.
so I disagree a little bit with Supervisor Curro in that I feel like if at that time, I think it's an appropriate discussion that it's brought back to the full board and we discuss what, if it comes under budget. The likelihood of it coming under budget is probably very slim. So I just feel like, why does that need to be part of the consideration today?
It doesn't need to be part of the vote. I'm just asking the board to
Okay.
consider that.
Okay, I would absolutely consider it. I just don't want it to be part of the
I
vote.
do think that $15 million is a lot of money and if we find a way to do this in the
It is a
state-
lot of money. This is not the first time that we've talked about this. I mean, I feel like this was on the radar prior to me becoming a supervisor, and now all of a sudden, we're in a budget meeting at the last second, and all of a sudden we're talking about now like, well, is this really what we want to do? I mean, I feel like some of these conversations should have happened years ago rather than right now. So I feel like we've made a commitment. We need to move forward with our commitment. And if it doesn't make sense, then there's some conversations that need to happen. But I fully feel like right now, in order to pass this budget, we've made a commitment to this community that has been years in the making, a ton of meetings with the community, with the board, with facilities, with, I have a hard time us taking this concept now and saying, it doesn't really make sense at the 23rd hour.
Well, I just want to stay on the record. I've always supported using the old courthouse as the library project. That's what I said from the beginning. And this concept of using the current library and trying to wedge in pieces of structure here and pieces of structure here is just, especially considering where the economy has gone, it's more, as we go along, it just doesn't really seem to make any sense.
I appreciate that. I just think that we could have more conversations. It's just, it shouldn't be part of this conversation today.
That's fine.
There's a commitment.
And I agree. I think the project number is not realistic because you're building on a building. The better way to do this, and we don't have to hammer this out, you're right now, this is a different conversation, but to have the architect, let them know, look, we need a building within a $13 million range because that's going to become 15 anyways. So if you do that, we're probably going to end up with a new building and planned right. So this is another conversation, but it's how we can do it as a team, we can do these things because you made a good point too. It's an older building. What are we doing? It's going to be very costly. I guarantee you there'll be so many change orders. The CAO said it. That number is going to be much higher. It'll probably be somewhere in the $18 to $19 million range. So let's do it right. Let's take the time. But let's get this budget taken care of.
We have a motion. I just want to make sure there's clarity. We included the suggestion about the deputy positions as well. And okay.
I'm going to be kind of a pain right here, and I apologize, but I'm wondering, can we take a recess for a few minutes and I'd like to see what this looks like now, like if we can get it kind of up on the screen so we're very clear about what is being included in this budget. Is that possible?
I'm fine with that. I thought it was pretty clear.
So close.
We're at.
We're almost there. I just want to make sure. There's been a lot of things that have been talked about, a lot of proposed. I just want to be very, very clear on what it's there.
We can take a few minutes. So the staff, again, the motion was the recommendations made, the GIS adjustment, the library adjustment, including the RFP for the library design, and including the deputy CAO position changes, along with the recommended budget that's in front of us. Do you still want to take a few minutes?
Please.
Okay, we'll take a few minute break and we'll come back. Thanks. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order, and we had the request to show the proposed changes.
So we added a slide outlining the 3 recommended changes that we discussed today. The first one is adding 60,000 to GIS division under the assessor's office, and continuing the discussion between the CAO's office and the assessors of bringing in 30,000 from the assessor's trust fund. The second modification is to the general fund contributions to road projects. So it would be a reduction of 2.9 million. And the projects would be shifted to be funded through Measure G, and also funding the library expansion project by freeing up the 2.9. And the third is general fund salaries and benefits will increase in administration office to fund the deputy CAO related specifically for the budget. Those are the 3 changes that were mentioned.
Yes, everyone's good with those? Any further comments, questions? I do just want to clarify that going forward with the CDBG funding, and there's a likelihood we're going to get that money, that I'm going to be supporting all of that money going toward the roads next year. That's me on the record saying I'm not backing off of the commitment to the roads, and I also will be keen on trying to get the library project to an more affordable level, and if we can reduce those expenditures, then I'm going to support shifting those dollars to the roads as well. Anything further? We have a motion on the table. I guess to restate we had the motion stated, we had a first. We want to restate the first. Whoever gave the first or the motion?
I gave the first. I'm going to say per staff's recommendations per my initial motion, as the slide indicates, is my motion. I don't want to repeat the whole thing unless you pop it back up there and I read it.
And then I can,
Can we get a second before?
And a second? Is there a second?
That you seconded before. I don't know if you just repeated.
I'll second it.
I don't know if it was mentioned to also approve both resolutions, which are items 3 and 4. So I want to make it clear there's a GAN limit resolution and there's a resolution to authorize spending authority.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve items 3 and 4 with the alterations per our discussions on the conditions of approval from today's date. And I'm making that as a formal motion.
We have a first and we have a second. I have one quick question. I'm sorry, I just want to clarify this before we go. I'm looking at Steve, so he knows I'm going to ask a really quick question, which is how much are we putting toward roads with those SB1 dollars? So that when you combine the $7 million, and you don't have to, you can shout it out if you need to, but roughly how much money are we putting toward roads with SB1, the Cole and I think Fairview? So we're putting toward $10 million still toward the roads. I just want to make sure that's clear on the record before we vote. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kosmicki?
Yes.
Supervisor Zanger?
Yes.
Supervisor Sotelo?
Yes.
Supervisor Curro?
Yes.
Supervisor Velasquez?
Yes.
5-0 vote, motion passes.
Okay, so that would take us to our final item, which, one second, sorry about that. Let me pull that up again. Final item, which is the 3A5, which is direct CAO or designee to move forward with deletion of PIO position and take necessary administrative actions to satisfy layoff procedures on July 11th, provide all noticing requirements for personnel rules and, if any, to effectuate the recommended actions. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
You have first, you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote?
Supervisor Kosmicki?
Yes.
Supervisor Zanger?
Yes.
Supervisor Sotelo? Supervisor Curro?
No.
Supervisor Velasquez?
Yes.
3-2 vote, motion passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the time, all the work, and we are adjourned.